Harris Dawson. This is, and welcome to, Los Angeles City Council's Planning and Land Use Management Committee's regular meeting. I am the chair of this committee. I'm joined by committee members Kern Price of the new 9th District, Mr. Bob Blumenfeld, and Mr. Gil Cedillo. There are 4 members present today, comprising a quorum. We'll begin this meeting, as we do all of our meetings, with folks who have filled out cards to provide public comment on more than one item. And so I'm looking at my screen, looking for the general public comment speakers, of which there are none. So general public comment is closed at this time. And so we'll begin our meeting, Mr. Mejia, with item number 2.
Councilman, item 2 is a report from the Planning Commission. It's a zone change ordinance changing the use from a commercial warehouse to a private athletic club, and it's located in Council District 4.
Excellent. So I believe we can take this item on consent, as there are no public comment speakers. So without objection, that'll be the action on item number 2. And we can continue our meeting with item number 1.
Yes, item 1, Councilman, is the weekly director's report.
The illustrious Department of Planning of the City of Los Angeles.
Good afternoon, Councilman. No items to report today.
Thank you so much. We'll note and file that item. Takes us to item number 3.
Councilman, item 3 is a communication from the mayor relative to the appointment of Helen Lung to the City Planning Commission.
All right. Ms. Leung, are you here in the audience? Yes. If you could come sit with us at the center table here. Tell us a little bit about yourself and why you were compelled to respond to such a request to serve the City of Los Angeles in this capacity.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and good afternoon, fellow council members. It's my honor to be nominated and considered by your commission to join the City Planning Commission. I would say that beyond my training as an urban planner and public policy wonk, I have 3 reasons why I am compelled to join the commission. One is my understanding and belief in government. 12 years ago, I worked at City Hall, understanding nuances of planning. I understand what it means to be an elected official, to have to serve both your constituents and the diversity of your community. Acknowledge that a citywide planning approach for some efforts doesn't make sense, a one-size-fits-all, so I acknowledge that you each have your own priorities and your communities are all unique. And I also realize that in order for government to work, there needs to be investment, and investment in a way that's fair and transparent and clear. So I believe that government has this unique opportunity to do more as it relates to planning. Second is my commitment and conviction about community. I run a nonprofit organization called LA Mas, and in the last 5 years, we've had the privilege of working in neighborhoods across the city, including many of yours, and understanding how each of the planning issues in the past has affected communities today and the potential and the needs that communities have in order to have a more inclusive, equitable, fair community is what I believe we have the opportunity to do. And third is my personal passion for our city to be better. And that comes from being a child of working class immigrants, of being a Ivy League graduate, and having the experience and the expertise to be able to shape change. And I would be honored to be able to serve on the City Planning Commission with those experiences, with my passion and my understanding of government and community, and the fact that LA is in a position to be able to shape policy that kind of shapes the future.
Thank you so much. An articulately well-organized presentation, and you make a good case for yourself and for the City of Los Angeles. I will ask members if they have any comments or questions for you. Mr. Price.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I had the honor and pleasure of meeting with Ms. Leung last week, before she had on her dark shades. And I understand we've had a little eye medical attention to the eye.
You're taking it. This is L.A.
we hope
She's
you-
just being cool, man.
well, we know she's
blowing
cool.
her cover.
I just want to acknowledge her coolness and let her know that we hope she has a speedy recovery also. But we're excited about this nomination. Not only is she an urban design professional, puts her money where her mouth is, working with small, medium-sized businesses, working on affordable housing projects. We appreciate that. Born and raised in Los Angeles, an Angelino, and so we're just pleased that she's stepping up to the plate again to share her expertise, her commitment, and her experience. I think she'll be an excellent choice, and I look forward to supporting her, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you so much, Mr. Price. Mr. Cedillo, Blumenfield.
Let me echo Helen, you're the consummate professional. We appreciate all that you're going to be bringing to the commission, both your overarching view of the city, but also your appreciation for the specific challenges that many of us have in our own districts. And so we look forward to your presence on the commission. Move to
Recommend. Mr. Blumenfield.
I'll just echo my colleagues. Thrilled you've got great experience and looking forward to working with you. And I know you've worked with the mayor before, and we won't hold that against you. No, we're happy about that. That's a good thing.
Thank you so much, members, and again, thanth you so much, Ms. Leong. I'm very excited about the prospect of your participation on the commission. One of the things we put forward that I think you're as great a champion of as anyone in this city, and that is the importance of design. When you go around the neighborhoods of Los Angeles, one of the things we contend is a primary issue of justice is that everybody's entitled to beauty, and everybody's entitled to see themselves reflected in the physical spaces around them, and there's no greater place to impact that than on this commission, and so we appreciate you bringing your expertise to it. With that, I'll second Mr. Cedillo's motion that we forward your nomination to the full City Council, and without objection, that'll be the order. Thank you so much.
Council members.
All right, that takes us to item number 4, Mr. Mejia.
Item 4 is a report from the Building and Safety Department. It has to do with technical corrections as recommended by the South Coast Air Quality Management District. And that's what's before you.
All right, I believe we have a report from Department of Building and Safety.
I am the Department.
Could you put the mic perpendicular with your mouth? Perfect, thank you.
There you go. Eugene Barbeau, Department of Building and Safety, Code Engineer. It was brought to our attention by a representative from the South Coast Air Quality Management District that our limits for volatile organic compounds and formaldehydes were out of line with the South Coast Air Quality Management District requirements. This ordinance would seek to correct those table entries for certain air pollutants, for sealers, architectural coatings, caulking, things of that nature.
Excellent, thank you. Is there any discussion on this matter? Seeing none and there's no public comment, we'll release you. I'll move that we request that the city attorney prepare and present this ordinance. If there's no objection, that'll be the order, and we'll move to the next item. Thank you so much. Item number 5.
Item 5, Councilman, this is a motion, Harris Dawson Wesson. It's requesting the Planning Department to initiate cultural heritage designation of property at 8734 South Broadway in your district.
Excellent. We have a report on this matter from someone I saw at this address not too long ago.
Thank you, Councilman Ken Bernstein with the Department of City Planning and Office of Historic Resources. We want to thank you for introducing this motion. This is the Historic Cultural Monument application initiation for the New Temple Missionary Baptist Church, which is well known now as the site where Aretha Franklin recorded her classic gospel album Amazing Grace over 2 nights in January 1972. The building began as a theater that had additions by the African-American architect Paul Revere Williams. This would initiate the Historic Cultural Monument nomination for its cultural significance. Our Office of Historic Resources would prepare the nomination upon approval by the City Council, present it to the Cultural Heritage Commission this summer, and bring it back to Committee and Council.
Excellent. Thank you so much. If there's no discussion, this great site is right there in District 8, about a block and a half from District 9. And for those of you who have not seen it, there was a film on the making of that album at the church there on Broadway and 87th. And so if there's no other discussion, I'll move that we send this item to the full City Council. Hearing no objection, that'll be the order. Takes us to item number 6.
Item 6, Councilman, this is a motion Koretz Harris Dawson. It's instructing the Planning Department to present an ordinance to rezone Century Glen neighborhood to the R1 variation zone.
All right, I believe we have a presentation from the Department of Planning on item number 6. Mr. Hershey. Mr. Hershey, Department of City Planning, City of Los Angeles. All right,
Hello, Councilman Jonathan Hershey, Department of City Planning. We have no presentation.
You have no presentation. All right, so we maybe have a presentation from someone from District 7?
District 5, Councilman.
Sorry, District 5. All right. All right, there is public comment on this. Ronald Rosen and Kevin Stromsborg. Yes.
Thank you. Good afternoon. My name is Ronald Rosen, and I'm here to speak in behalf and support of this motion. I live in the affected area and have been active on this issue. When the mansionization ordinance was being first proposed, we were told that we would be able to be considered to be excluded from it, so we hurried up and did our due diligence to get signatures, but by the time we had them collected, the ordinance had to be voted upon, and we did not have time to get the mapping done to be included. The second comment I would make is that our area is sort of unique. The horse is out of the barn. We have substantial two-story conditions in our area that really are predominant, and so our area can handle the slight increase in zoning that would occur with a 0.50 from a 0.45 FAR. And I would urge you to move this forward to the next level. Thank you.
Thank you.
Kevin Stromsborg. I am also a resident homeowner in Council District 5. I'm here to speak in support of R1 V2 zoning, and I echo the comments of Ronald Rosen.
Excellent. Thank you so much. I just want to make sure we don't have anybody from District 5 to speak on this. No comment from District 5. Thank you so much. All right, is there any discussion on this, Mr. Price?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just got a quick question to staff on this item. Will there be additional staff resources dedicated to the ordinance? Planning? And is this a part of the 2019-20 budget?
Jonathan Hershey, Department of City Planning. No additional staff has been allocated to this particular work program.
Okay, is it part of the new budget request, or do you know? Is it part of the budget request?
I'm sorry, sir?
Is it part of the budget request?
No, it is not part of the budget request.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you.
Any other questions or comments on this matter? Hearing none, I'll move that we adopt this matter without objection. Hearing none, that'll be the order, which takes us to item number 7.
Is a report from the Planning Department relative to a report back on the Ventura Cahuenga Boulevard Corridor Specific Plan.
All right, these people from the Planning Department are ready. All right?
We're ready.
All right, let's do it.
So I have a presentation.
All right, we before you all go, we'll get a little bit of contextual testimony from Mr. Blumenfield.
Great. Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. I just want to say a lot of work has gone, is this on? Yeah. Has gone into getting to this point and initiating an amendment to finally modernize the Ventura-specific plan, a plan that's literally over 30 years old, was barely touched about 20 years ago. And I really want to thank the department and my colleagues along the Ventura Boulevard corridor for working together to get us to this point. We worked really hard with all of the council members along Ventura Boulevard, which, you know, it's not always easy to get everybody in line, but everybody was on board and had a seat at the table. And I just want to say it's definitely time that this process move forward and ensure that it's open and transparent. And as we discussed this last time, the council has shown a preference for option number 2 in our previous meetings on this item, and that's specifically to allow for modernization of the plan's administrative procedures and updating the zoning to reflect Recode LA and to create consistency with the concurrent community plans updates that are underway throughout the South Valley. And I also want to make it clear for those following along at home, the option that we're talking about is not going to upzone or drastically alter the land use controls that are in place. Because I know there are concerns about that out there, and I wanted to assure people of that. Rather, it's going to update a plan that's outdated and does not reflect current planning best practices. It's critically important that we modernize a plan that encompasses the commercial heart of the San Fernando Valley, which is that Ventura Boulevard corridor. The funding has already been identified and allocated by the council for this process, and now it's important to begin the active outreach and communications to the affected communities regarding the process and the goals of the important modernization of the Ventura-Cahuenga Boulevard corridor specific plan. So I didn't mean to steal too much of your thunder. I know you have a presentation on it, but I wanted to get some of that out. So thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you so much, Mr. Blumenfeld. You're on.
So good afternoon, Plum Committee members. My name is Delia Arriaga. I'm a city planning assistant with the Department of City Planning. What I'm about to present is going to emphasize some of what Councilmember Blumenfeld just said. In the fall of 2017, the City Council adopted Motion 17-1071 requesting that the Department of City Planning report options for amending the Ventura-Cahuenga Boulevard Corridor specific plan. The options detail total costs, staffing needs, and timeline for each option. On August 28, 2018, the department reported to the Plum Committee 3 different options for amending the specific plan. The Plum Committee selected the preferred work program, instructed the department to provide additional information on budgetary impacts, and requested an outreach plan. The department was previously scheduled to provide this report to Plum on November 6th of last year, but the item was postponed and rescheduled to today. The preferred work program, referred to as Option 2, includes simplifying approval processes, evaluating parking in lieu fees, and expanding the use of transportation funds. Option 2 also includes cleaning up zoning inconsistencies, parcels with dual classification, and implementing the city's new zoning code. The amendment will be consistent with rezoning undertaken as part of the concurrent community plan update program in surrounding communities. As part of the 2018-2019 fiscal year budget, the department received funding for a new specific plan maintenance unit. The funding included 1 full-time city planner, 1 full-time city planning assistant, and consultant costs. The preferred work program can be accomplished with these budgeted resources. The department has prepared since then an outreach plan that includes a communication strategy, meetings with neighborhood councils, meetings for the general community, and targeted stakeholder engagement. First, the outreach plan lays the groundwork by meeting with the Department of Neighborhood Empowerment and coordinating with neighborhood councils. During the second stage, the focus is to listen and dialogue with a cross-section of stakeholders, including residents, the business community, council district leadership, and neighborhood councils. Subsequently, staff will report back to Plum and provide briefing presentations to the neighborhood councils to ensure the amendment reflects the needs of stakeholders. Prior to adoption and implementation of the amendment, staff will host 2 community open houses and a public hearing. The department anticipates a timeline of approximately 24 months to complete the amendment and related outreach. We're available to take any questions and comments you may have at this time. Thank you.
Thank you so much for your report, Mr. Blumenfeld.
Thank you. A couple of questions. Is the staffing adequate to complete this process in the time allotted?
This is Blake Lamb with the Planning Department. Yes, as part of the fiscal year 2018-2019 budget, we were allocated to staff and consultant costs, which are adequate to conduct the work.
Okay, and so what is the proposed completion date?
So if the department is provided direction by the Plum Committee and the City Council, we can commence work immediately. We have proposed an approximately 24-month timeline schedule. So as soon as we're given the go-ahead to initiate the work, then it would be approximately 24 months.
Okay, and that's the go-ahead that we're going to give you today. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay, great. The outreach plan that's been given to council, how is it different than the normal outreach plan or process?
The only thing that's really, I mean, the processes itself are pretty much in line with what we do with the community plan updates. What's really different is we would touch on every neighborhood council that is with the Ventura specific plan that is impacted in that way, and throughout that process from step one.
Yeah, and Blake Lamb, this, I think another difference is that this outreach process involves some very targeted, direct communications with a lot of the business owners along Ventura, recognizing that it's not only the property owners that we need to communicate this information to, but the actual tenants who may not own the property. And so we have included some work to undertake to make sure that we're targeting tenants as well as business owners, as well as property owners.
Yeah, that's very important, so thank you for that. And are there economies of scale that can be had from the ongoing community plan update process occurring in the Southwest and Southeast Valley, not including the outreach?
Yeah, Blake Lamb with planning. Absolutely. So as part of our community plan outreach, our community plan updates outreach process, we are doing a lot of communication work with the neighborhood councils. We do workshops. We do open houses, and so we'll certainly look at opportunities to piggyback on those events to also provide updates and information about the specific plan work that we're doing.
Great. No, it all can be synergistic, and using these opportunities will only make it cheaper to do everything and more effective. So that's great. When we're done with this, what I'd like to do is to move that we adopt option 2 from the Planning Department's June 28, 2018 report, as well as their outreach plan submitted on September 27, 2018, and direct planning to immediately begin this work program with an initial emphasis on outreach to the communities in the specific plan, which I think is exactly what you said you needed in order to get going. Is that correct?
That's correct. Thank you.
Excellent. Thank you so much, Mr. Blumenfield. Mr. Blumenfield, we have one public comment speaker on this item, Kathy Daldon. Don?
Afternoon. My name is Kathy Deladani. I'm president of the Plan Review Board. Our board members urge you to support this outreach plan and get it going. The Boulevard needs economic vitality. This is extremely important. Business owners cannot wait 4 to 6 months for a sign approval. They need it right away in order to get their business going. This options and the plan will certainly make some definite changes to rid them of the burden of the restrictions on the plan. Well, so vote yes. Thank you.
Thank you so much. All right, Mr. Mejia, Mr. Blumenfield has put forward language on this item. I'm not sure if it's an amendment or a new motion.
It's consistent with the language in the briefing notes, Councilman.
Okay.
It is accurate. Basically approve the 24-month specific plan outreach strategy that includes communication with neighborhood councils, the general community, and targeted stakeholders, and as recommended by option 2 in the 2018 report that the planning department prepared.
So, and to immediately begin the work program.
Yes. Yeah, immediately is, but I remember, yeah.
Yep.
Immediately begin work program. All right. So Mr. Blumenfield has moved this language. I'll second it. If there's no discussion or objection, that'll be the order, and we'll move this item. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Blumenfield. That takes us to item number 8.
Item 8, Councilman, this is a motion, Ryu Harris-Dawson. It's instructing the planning department with the assistance of the city attorney to prepare reports analyzing 2 housing bills in the legislature, SB 4 and SB 330, and also the difference as it relates to SB 50, also pending in the legislature.
All right. Mr. Glesney, of the Department of City Planning, or another Yes, well, can we consider 8 and 9 together? So if you could read number 9 into the...
Well, yeah, I mean, there's interrelated, except that we'll take the vote separately.
Got it.
8 is a motion, 9 is a report.
Okay, so this way he can just come...
Yeah,
one.
that's fine. And
All right.
item 9, Councilman, is a report that the Planning Department has prepared, provides a very thorough analysis on SB 50.
Got it.
Because didn't they folded SB 4 into SB 50 just recently?
Yes.
So it's the same bill.
So there's a lot of goings-on in Sacramento.
Right.
But I don't know why people up there are like that. As the chair of the Sacramento committee here. Yes, sir, Mr. Glesney.
Sure. Good afternoon, council members. My name is Matt Glesney. I'm with the Department of City Planning's Housing Policy Unit, and I'll be giving our verbal report about the written reports we submitted on SB 50. We can come back maybe to item 8 if we need to at the end, but we'll be talking about item 9. So we'll be providing a summary of the 2 reports, actually, that we submitted to this Plum Committee in the last month on the topic of Senate Bill 50, particularly focusing on the impacts of planning and zoning in Los Angeles per the Council Motion 18-1226. The department did submit an initial comprehensive report dated April 23rd. However, the next day, the bill was significantly amended on the floor of the Senate Finance and Local Government Committee. Therefore, we prepared a second supplemental report dated May 9th that details the amendments and provides new maps and information on potential impacts, including at the council district and community plan area level. That's in attachment 2 to our May 9th report. I believe we did distribute those updated maps for you to look at as well. The stated goal of Senate Bill 50 is to address the state's severe housing crisis, which most experts agree is due in large part to a significant slowdown in housing construction over the last 15 to 20 years in the state of California. The bill seeks to significantly increase housing construction across California in areas well served by transit and job opportunities by expanding areas where multifamily residential projects can be built. It does this by overriding many local planning and zoning rules to provide for 2 new types of projects. It gets a bit complicated. I'm going to do my best to try to summarize the way the bill is looking right now. As I mentioned, 2 types of projects. The first type is what was originally in the bill, SB 50, and they're called Equitable Communities Incentives, which itself is subdivided into 2 subsets of incentives. That first set removes density limits or limits on the number of allowable units within a building and relaxes parking requirements. And this occurs in areas within a quarter mile of high-quality bus corridors with 10-minute service, as well as a much more expansive, job-rich area that covers about 1/3 of the entire Los Angeles region, including most higher-income, high-opportunity areas with employment opportunities. In areas within a half mile of rail stops, projects also qualify for additional height and floor area limits per the state. This is further differentiated with areas within a quarter mile of rail receiving up to 55 feet in height and 3.25 floor area ratios, and areas within a half mile qualifying up for 45 feet and 2.5 floor area ratio. Both these types of equitable communities incentives are limited in that they may not be used wherever a renter has lived in the past 7 years. They're limited and excluded from any very high fire severity zones, as well as contributing parcels in local historic districts, such as our local HBOZs, but only those established after 2010, as well as isolated coastal zone properties. In addition, lower income areas declared and mapped as sensitive communities after a SCAG-led process will be exempt from SB 50 incentives for at least 5 years, during which a community plan process may commence that will provide similar levels of upzoning, as well as consider additional protections against displacement, etc. Sensitive communities cover a wide area of Los Angeles, so this provision is very important to understand the impacts of SB 50 here in LA. The second type of project that was added to the bill through the recent amendments is called a neighborhood multifamily project, and this is essentially what was in SB 4, and when they merged the 2 bills together, this became part of SB 50. The neighborhood multifamily project is a new type of by-right state approval for 2 to 4 unit projects that apply statewide wherever residential use is allowed. So whereas the other category is limited to certain geographies, this would apply to any area of the entire state where residential uses are allowed, allowing up to a 4-unit building. While these projects must generally comply with all other zoning standards, including height, setbacks, open space, etc., they do also receive a parking reduction of 0.5 space per unit. There are many more restrictions on this type of project, including that they must take place on a vacant lot or be a small expansion to an existing structure. They may not be located on a long list of sites, including the coastal zone, fire zones, floodplains, conservation areas, earthquake zones, hazardous waste sites, as well as specific language that applies to all historic districts, state, national, and local. Since Los Angeles has so many qualified transit and job-rich areas and covers such a large and diverse area, this bill will potentially have far-reaching effects in the city of Los Angeles. Next, we'll present our high-level conclusions and considerations presented in the report. First, we believe the most significant incentives are those first category, the equitable communities incentives, and we estimate those would be in effect and available for about 17% of the city's total developable acreage. That's looking at the parcel level and trying to look at all those prohibitions and exclusions, and that's what the map in front of you reflects. I'll note that this percentage went down by about a half from where it was prior to the amendments, when they took out the fire zones in historic districts and changed the bus lines, etc. The largest impacts of the bill may occur in lower density zoned areas that are located within the half-mile rail station corridor. This is where you're able to get the minimum heights in the floor area, and therefore the limits that normally restrict you in single-family zones would be removed, and you would get these state minimums. This is about 6% of all the single-family zone parcels in the city are near that half mile of rail, and about 7% of all of our duplex and restricted density multifamily zones. We think those are where the biggest impacts will be for this bill. A related point is that SB 50 may move development focus away from commercial corridors and high-density zoned residential areas and into these lower-density zoned areas. Some of us are calling it a leapfrog effect or leapfrog development, because the development incentives would be larger in these lower-density areas, but the affordability requirements, the development incentives would be larger, but the affordability requirements would be lower. And this is perhaps comparing it to our TOC program, where you have affordable housing requirements. Normally it applies on the commercial corridors. You would actually get more for less, sort of in the residential areas behind those commercial corridors. The legislation also appears to allow for the city's design and historic preservation controls to be superseded in some instances. This is because the bill is linked to another state law called the Housing Accountability Act, which prevents the use of what is considered to be non-objective design and historic review criteria. So that's something we highlighted in our report as a concern. There remain important questions about how the bill would work in LA, which we highlighted throughout our report. One example is how SB 50 would work with the city's transit-oriented communities, or TOC program. Despite the SB 50 fact sheet that came out with the original bill saying that the TOC program in Los Angeles would be targeted and excluded and exempted from the bill, this language is not yet in the bill, so there's a lot of questions. Finally, our April report also discusses the background to the housing crisis and how Los Angeles has been a leader in the creation of new housing policies that are actually delivering results, including the TOC program, which SB 50 authors cited as a local example of an effective housing program. Just one statistic we just found as well is that the city permitted a fully 75% of all housing in the county last year, despite being only about 40% of this county's population. So we feel like we're doing our job here in the city of Los Angeles. The next step for this bill is the Senate Appropriations Committee hearing tomorrow. The committee will determine whether the bill proceeds this session. If it passes, the bill moves to the full Senate floor for a vote, and the bill would begin a committee process in the Assembly. The final bill would then require a final Senate and Assembly floor vote before it goes to the governor's desk for signature. I hope I got that right. Thank you very much, and we're happy to answer any questions.
All right, thank you so much for your report. I think members are eager to discuss. I have one public comment card on the matter, so if you'll just hang tight, Mr. Glesney, we'll get this public comment speaker, and then we'll hear from members. I'm sure you're going to have plenty of questions to respond to. Ms. Emma Howard.
Good afternoon, council members. I'm actually here to speak on item 8, which is the motion from my boss, council member David Rue.
Yes.
Should I go now?
Yes.
Okay, great. So I want to commend Mr. Glesney. It's great to hear the update. He's keeping track of what Sacramento's up to. which seems like more than one full-time job. The planning supplemental report included just measures that will cut the legs out of our local TOC incentives, which were voter approved. Sadly, the council member believes we need Mr. Glesney to put on his study cap and give us some more analysis. This Sacramento proliferation of interrelated state bills, there are several other state bills that we would like to make sure are analyzed. In particular, I want to note AB 4 is no longer before us. It's been combined into SB 50. That was the report that Mr. Glesney presented. So we do want to look at SB 330. That's the Skinner bill that will prohibit downzoning across California while the housing crisis is in effect. And I would like to ask that the council members amend this to instruct planning to also look at Assembly Bill 1279, which is Assembly Member Bloom. This is a pretty complex one, and I think it's going to conflict with SB 50 in particular. So my request today would be that you move to approve our motion, but change out SB 4 for AB 1279. Thank you.
Thank you. We have Mr. Doug Haynes.
My name's Doug Haynes. I'm with 2 neighborhood councils in Hollywood. With all due respect, I would point out that the TOC guidelines were not voter approved. The intent of Measure JJJ is counter to what we see in the TOC guidelines. While this council is rightly expending a great deal of energy over SB 50, which you unfortunately have little say on, you're not addressing the devastating impacts that we're seeing with the TOC guidelines, which you have shown no interest in fixing. Our experience in Hollywood is that the TOC incentives are far worse than the current version of SB 50.
So this item is about a state bill?
Well, you called me up. I'm on the SB 50 issue for Measure 9.
Right, and you're talking about TOCs.
I'm talking about the comparison between the TOCs and SB 50.
Right.
So,
and this is about SB 50.
And that's what I'm trying to address. And
okay.
My time is running out. If I can get my time back.
Go ahead.
What I'm saying is that SB 50 addresses the single-family residential qualities, but no one in the city has the courage to address the problems with the TOC guidelines, which are decimating the impoverished communities we have throughout Los Angeles, forcing mostly minority populations out of their long-term housing and creating escalating rents for everyone else. The TOC guidelines counter the language and intent of Measure JJJ, upend good zoning laws, and allow historic communities little say over their future. Yet nothing is being done to address it.
Thank you. That's your time.
I think I had more time, but
when we talk on TOCs, we want to hear all of that, what you were saying. Thank you. Mr. Cedillo?
I was just trying to, with respect to this discussion and bringing in duplexes, triplexes, fourplexes, and there's an exemption for the RSOs. We are 75% RSO, so what's the real impact if we have such a large RSO rental community? Then where are we going to build these duplexes, et cetera? Do we know? I mean, does it just moot out the point?
Sure. Matt Glesney, Planning. I think it's an excellent point to underline is the restrictions on the use of this bill, and those restrictions in particular on any, not only RSO, but any place where a tenant had lived, any tenant, even non-RSO,
yep.
and any tenant within the last 10 years
yep.
for the fourplex bill. So that certainly does limit the number of parcels that can be used significantly and orientates them more towards our lower density, traditionally owner-occupied housing stock and away from traditional rental neighborhoods. So it has certainly an overall lowering of the impact and sort of geographically pushes those impacts into other areas and leaves other areas more alone.
The other question, if I may, Mr. Chair, just briefly. So we've recognized, we've seen several reports lately that indicate that all the affordability is being built in certain districts. Mine and 14 are the leaders, also 9 and 10, 8. And yet other parts of the district we're not building affordability. And so my question is, how does this bill impact that? Does it facilitate affordability and a more equitable distribution throughout the city? Or does it continue to perpetuate the segregation that is being perpetuated by our various zoning laws?
Difficult question, but I would say that the intent, if you'd asked, I think the folks who wrote this bill, that is one of their big intents is to open up areas of the city for housing that have traditionally only been allowed for single-family dwellings. That is seen in many areas as a legacy of segregation and housing policies and discrimination that came before us. So I think there are, and we did present numbers in our attachment too that actually show the council districts and the community plan areas that would be most affected, and I think the numbers do show that areas with high rental, higher poverty rates actually have less of an impact, are less impacted by this bill, and areas that are traditionally more single family and lower density and higher income and more owner occupancy kind of carry a heavier piece of the load here with this bill. So again, I think the bill's authors would say that that is a step. Part of their explicit aim is to address some of those legacies.
Okay. Thank you.
All right. Mr. Blumenfeld?
Thank you. A couple questions. If the new inclusionary housing requirements are enacted, like what we're doing in the Warner Center and other areas, will this bill undercut the ability to enforce those? And has there been clarity given to whether the linkage fee or TOC program count as inclusionary housing programs?
Thank you, Councilman. Matt Glesney, Planning. The bill does state that if there are local inclusionary requirements, that those will stand within those areas. So whether it's a citywide inclusionary, which we do not have, but you're correct, we have it in certain areas. My understanding in those particular areas that have the inclusionary requirements, that those affordability levels set by the inclusionary requirements would override the other affordability requirements in SB 50. So I think it's clear in places like Warner Center being developed in Central City West that those would remain, the affordability levels. The question is less clear when you talk about our linkage fee, which tries to encourage every project have affordable housing in it through a sort of exemption if you provide units on site. But we're not sure if that meets the definition of an inclusionary housing ordinance, since it's really a fee ordinance. So these are questions we raised in our report. We don't want to give a definitive answer. I think we want to see where this evolves. But certainly in local areas with inclusionary, those would remain. TOC is another question mark. TOC could be seen as an inclusionary. I don't think they defined what they mean by inclusionary. We think of it more of an incentive-based program. It's not a requirement on everybody. It's a voluntary program. So whether the bill sponsors that they intend to be expansive and include programs like TOC that were incentive-based, or really be strictly focused on what are more traditionally thought of inclusionary is a bit undefined. We don't want to, I think, give our opinion to keep our eyes open. I think there are negotiations on this point and continued discussions with advocates about these points in Los Angeles and how the TOC relates to the program. But certainly in these areas that have very clear inclusionary, those would apply.
Regarding we definitely need to follow that and figure out how that's going to work. But they cut off the HPOZ formed after 2010, right? What's the reason for that, or how are HPOZs being impacted?
That's right. And they treat historic districts kind of two separate ways in those two separate pieces of the bill. The SB 4 version and the old SB 50 version have different language. So in the Equitable communities, original SB 50 side of things, you're right, they only exempted historic districts that existed 2010 or before. We do not know why. We've asked, did not get a response on why that chose that as their cutoff. But I will note in the fourplex, so the other piece of the legislation, the SB 4 piece, they have a much more expansive exclusion and would exclude all projects that affect historic properties in state, local, national, regardless of the year. So two different historic kind of regulations depending on which type of project you're pursuing.
We have to figure that out as well, if that's going to actually happen. And then on the fourplex issue, where you said something I didn't know, it has to be on a vacant lot. How does that work? So what happens if you're a single-family home, single-family zone neighborhood, and then someone knocks down a house, is that now a vacant lot? Or what? Or can they just turn that house into a duplex or a fourplex?
Excellent question. Matt Glesney, Planning. When we initially heard about this provision that it had to be on a vacant lot, we assumed that that would not allow for a sort of easy process to demolish, that it had to be a true vacant lot, had been vacant for a long time. When we actually saw the bill text come out, it's not at all clear that it's that restrictive. Just the straight reading of the definition of vacant unit just says when you come in for an SB 50 project, is it vacant at the time? There's no look back, there's no attempt to try to figure out was it just demolished last year. So our reading right now is that it does have to be vacant when you come in to apply for the SB 50 project, but there's no look back or no tying it to...
So if this passes, there's nothing to stop a developer from buying any single-family house, knocking it down and building a fourplex?
Not that we see, yeah.
Pretty much anywhere in the city or anywhere in the state?
I think that's right. Yeah, that's our view right now, yeah.
Okay. And then the implementation process. I haven't heard a lot about how that would work. Any thoughts about that?
Yeah, certainly a bill of this magnitude is going to require considerable thought and attention to how it gets rolled out and implemented. We've been dealing in our unit with a number of state bills that have come through, particularly accessory dwelling units, some streamlining bills that have come through, all very relatively simple compared to the package that this throws at us. We think we've learned how to do some things sort of by right, and we've had some experience with that over the last year, but this brings all new issues, and I'd frankly recommend that we come and think separately. If the bill actually has legs, it looks like it's going to pass, we may want to think seriously about how it's implemented and potential policy changes.
Let me formalize that, since I know we're going to consider some other bills, et cetera, but I'm going to ask that we move that planning report back with an analysis on the city's requirements and needs for implementing this bill if it's adopted, or if significant progress is made toward adoption, so that we can be prepared and we have our eyes wide open. And I guess leave it to your discretion as far as what is that trigger point, but if it really starts to get legs, as you say, we want you working on that absolutely as soon as possible.
Thank you, Mr. Blumenfeld. Mr. Price.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I just want to kind of piggyback on my colleague's question, I believe. I agree with him. We just have to have more information. Right now, we're just so kind of wandering. But can the planning department provide an additional analysis on our major corridors with the highest ridership, including regular bus lines, not just the rapid lines and the transit lines? So just a more comprehensive picture of what transit's going to look like in those areas. That's all I have.
Absolutely. I just want to make sure I understood. You're looking for more analysis on our major corridors that have a lot of riders, whether
Correct.
they're just regular buses, rapid buses, or rail, and how that impacts, how that interfaces with SB 50?
Correct.
Absolutely, sure.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you, and you want to make that as an amendment?
I'd like to make that as an amendment, Mr. Chair.
Excellent.
However you think it'd be best.
So we've got a couple of
positioned.
amendments, and I'd like to add a third. And I'd like to ask the representative from Council District 4 to come back to the podium. So we got Mr. Blumenfeld's, we've got Mr. Price's, and then we've got this cacophony of bills coming from Sacramento. And I would just ask if you could read all the numbers again so we can make sure we got all of them.
So item 8, which is the motion by Councilman Ryu, the planning deputy for Councilman Ryu indicated that the analysis should be on AB 1279 rather than SB 4, along with SB 330.
All right. Are there any other ones? That is okay. Thank you. Got it.
Okay. So that motion, I guess the action would be to adopt it as amended, Councilman.
Okay. Got it. All right. So we have some public comment speakers on this. We have DJ Moore.
For the next item.
Oh, so you're for number 10? Okay.
Number 10.
Excellent. Sorry, my mistake. All right, so we've exhausted public comment on this. So we have number 8 as amended before us.
Yes,
If there's no objection, we'll move that one to the full council. Seeing none, that'll be the order. And now we'll consider number 9.
Various additional requests. One was by Councilman Price to do an analysis as SB 50 relates to major corridors, and that is one ask. The second one was by Councilman Blumenfield asking the city's implementation requirements, assuming that the bill progresses in Sacramento.
Got it. And with Mr. Price's, can we make that within the next 10 days?
Yes, that can be embedded in the committee report.
Got it.
He has a request.
All right, thank you. So we will move forward with that item as adopted if there's no objection. That'll be the order. So thank you, Mr. Glesney. I think that completes our discussions on items number 8 and 9 and leaves us with item number 10.
Item 10, Councilman, this is a report from the Planning Commission as it relates to amendments to the Coliseum specific plan and the Coliseum sign district, and the city attorney has prepared the necessary implementation ordinances.
All right, are there any contextual comments that you'd like to offer for the record, Mr. Price? Nope. All right, you're on.
All right, thank you. Good afternoon, honorable committee members. My name is Adam Villani of the Department of City Planning, and I'm the project planner assigned to this case, Council File 15-1541-S4 for freeway signage related to the LAFC soccer stadium. This case was heard by the Plum Committee on April 9th and recommended for approval pending the 2 ordinances being revised by the city attorney for form and legality. The 2 ordinances that we have for you today, then, are these 2 ordinances, one for an amendment to the Coliseum and Soccer Stadium sign district, and one for an amendment to the Coliseum district specific plan. We also have a minor technical correction to submit to you. This would be added to Appendix K of the sign district ordinance you are considering. This technical correction shows renderings of the freeway sign proposed for West 12th Place. It was inadvertently left off of the version of the sign district ordinance submitted to the Plum Committee. If you have any questions regarding this, I am ready to respond to them.
All right, any questions or comments? Mr. Price.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. First of all, thanks for the report. Just curious, what studies have been conducted around signage regulation along the freeways? Have we done anything recently?
Any studies?
Studies, that's correct, around the signage regulation.
I don't know of any studies around that recently. There's the environmental impact report includes some information about distraction possibilities, and the recommendations in there are for keeping things to an 8-second refresh rate, and that's what was studied, and that's what we have in here. As refresh rate.
Well, I certainly support the motion today as presented, but independent of that, I would like to get a report back to the council on the overall impact, overall effects that signage has on residents and visitors.
Okay.
Here in the city. Overall effects and impacts that the signage has on residents and visitors to the city.
Okay. Thank you.
And again, Mr. Chairman, I support this motion totally, completely. Thank you.
Excellent. Thank you so much, Mr. Price. If there's no other discussion, we'll move this item as amended by Mr. Price.
Yes, so Councilman, what's before you is the city attorney prepare ordinances. So the planning department asked that a modification be made to Appendix K. If the city attorney can make that modification and transmit it to the council before it's scheduled in council this Friday. So it's part of the ordinance, it's embedded in it, so therefore it has to be transmitted to the council before it gets there on Friday.
Okay, got it. And I've also got Mr. DJ Moore, public comment on this.
And I was also going to mention that Councilman Price requested an additional analysis on the overall impact on businesses and residents.
Perfect.
I'm not trying to slow this slow this up. So that's separate from.
Yeah, it'll be embedded in the committee report.
Okay, thank you.
Yes.
Yes, sir, Mr. Moore.
DJ Moore. If I'm the only speaker, we'll waive our time. We support the staff recommendation and the city attorney report, and thank you very much for your time and consideration.
Duly noted. If there's no other discussion on this item, then we'll approve the prepared ordinances.
As amended, Councilman.
And as amended, and amend the Coliseum-specific plan on the soccer stadium sign district, and the EIR certified on December 18th, 2015, as supported by addenda dated September 2015, May 2017, June 2017, October 4, 2018, and March 2019, and related sequel findings.
And also, Councilman, to ask the, request the city attorney to please prepare the amendment before it reaches council on Friday.
Excellent. So we'll include such a request
Thank you.
in this item. All right. Hearing no objection, that'll be the order. Thank you so much, Mr. Price.
Thank you.
Item number 11.
Item 11, Councilman, this is a report from the Planning Department as well as an appeal filed by the Sherman Oaks Homeowners Association. It relates to a conditional use and conditions therein as it relates to the Buckley School.
Thank you.
Good afternoon, Councilman. My name is Courtney Schallwald. I'm here with the City Planning Department. You're here today because there was a conditional use approved in 2008, and since then, several compliance reports have been issued with the plan approval. Before you today is an appeal of the fifth of these. The applicant has requested the removal of the condition that would repeatedly cause for those plan approvals to be submitted, and the City Planning Department concurred with that request. CD4 also supported that change. That's what the large focus of what the appeal is about. CD4 has also submitted additional language to change condition number A53, which you should have before you, but we're here if you have any questions for us.
Excellent. Thank you so much. Questions and comments, members, on this before we go to CD4 staff? All right. Ms. Howard, one more time.
Thanks for letting us clog up your plum agenda today. This is Emma Howard, Senior Planner to Councilmember David Rue. I'm not going to read all of my testimony since it's been submitted to the file. I just want to say we are really in support. The council member has really appreciated working, first of all, with the planning staff on this. They have been chipping away diligently at an annual plan review for many years, and they're partway through 2019 and still working on 2017's annual plan review. The school is a model school in terms of CUP condition compliance. We don't think there's been ever a recorded violation. I think there are constituents who might tell you they have some concerns, and we hear that. Our hope is that by amending A53 condition, we can create even more transparency and conversation with the community. So we hope that you'll move in support of the changes that planning also supports. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. All right, we have our appellant from the Sherman Oaks Homeowners Association. Please sit down. This is your first warning and your last warning, Mr. Spindler. Yes, ma'am. My apologies.
Thank you. 2,000 households containing thousands more voters. That's how many people that
I'm sorry, could you start with your name for the record?
Excuse me. My name is Vivian Gumbiner.
Thank you.
2,000 households containing thousands more voters. That's how many people that I am representing for the Sherman Oaks Homeowners Association today. If you are not familiar with the Buckley School, it is a K-12 private school with tuition of over $42,000 per student for grades 6 through 12. It's a busy campus. A recent audit found that the school had on-campus activities for 74 out of 75 days, including after school and on weekends. This is far more usage than most LAUSD schools. The school, which is located in the midst of a completely residential neighborhood, generates over 1,900 daily vehicle trips, which is a huge burden on the neighborhood. Agreement on the Buckley School conditional use permit was a long, hard process. At the city's request, Sherman Oaks Homeowners Association, the Sherman Oaks Neighborhood Council, and Buckley worked for many, many months to revise the conditional use permit. The planning hearing commissioner stated that she had never seen a school receive such a generous CUP. There were only a couple of concessions to the neighbors in the new CUP. One of them was the submission of the annual compliance report. This report provides important information to those who are affected daily by the school, the voters and residents of Sherman Oaks. Without this report, there will be no system of checks and balances to protect the neighbors. The school asserts that the report is no longer necessary because the planning department is relieving selected private schools from filing the report. The city planners who we spoke to said they did not request that reports be eliminated. The Buckley School came to them with this request. The city planners consider several factors in making their determination. In fact, 2 city planners stated to us that they had no record of neighbors having complaints and concerns with the school. That was just repeated by the councilman's office. However, we told them there were numerous complaints and concerns over the years in the minutes from the neighborhood meetings. These minutes were supposed to be used when they made their determination for excluding the annual compliance report. However, their determination did not include the minutes from neighborhood quarterly meetings as required in section A53 of the CUP. This means that their decision was based on incomplete information. Gentlemen, if you think about it, it's kind of like giving a student an A when they fail to complete the coursework. The school cites a delay in the city planning department reviewing the reports, but when SOHA provided a reasonable solution to the school, which made the delay a non-issue, the school ignored it. And yes, the 2017 report had been filed already. Yes, there is a history and pattern of non-compliance by the Buckley School, and it cannot be ignored. An example are the parents who drive on the wrong side of the road to pass traffic to get their schools to kids faster. Driving on the wrong side of the road to get their kids to school faster, endangering the lives of our neighbors. The question Plum needs to ask is, why does Buckley want to discontinue the annual compliance report? Why do they want to eliminate the checks and balance system that informs and protects the neighbors that was agreed to in the amended CUP? You may ask why Councilman Ryu's office is supporting the Buckley School's request. Quite honestly, we are baffled by his decision. When the CUP was being revised, we followed all of the city's requests to work with the Buckley School, the Sherman Oaks Neighborhood Council, and neighbors to craft the amended CUP. We have had at least 3 councilmen since the CUP was amended, along with turnover at the school, which has resulted in a lack of institutional memory. The memory of the neighbors, many of whom have resided in the neighborhood for over 25 years in the school, remains strong, and we recognize the need for the checks and balances provided by the annual compliance report. Again, we did this at the behest of the city. We worked with the city, and now the city is backing out. The Buckley has a team of expensive lawyers who help them navigate through their CUP to work out deals with the school's best interests. All the neighbors have are the conditions of the CUP, which were reached after much thought-out consideration, review, and support by our representatives in the city of Los Angeles. SOHA asserts that the neighbors deserve the continued protection provided by the submission of the annual compliance report.
Thank you. All right, now we have a representative from the applicant, the Buckley School.
Good afternoon, Chair Harris Dawson and committee members. David Goldberg of Armbruster, Goldsmith, and Delvac. I'm here on behalf of the Buckley School. I'm joined today by Lisa Tershon, the school's CFO, and Curtis Covington, its head of facilities. You've already heard some background about the school. In 2008, it received an updated CUP, and as a part of that CUP, there was a condition to file for an annual compliance review for 10 years and then once every 10 years thereafter. In the first 5 annual reviews the school has submitted, the Director of Planning, on behalf of the Planning Commission, determined the school to be in compliance. A neighbor appealed that last compliance review, and this committee rejected that appeal, upholding the Planning Director's determination. In this current appeal, Ms. Gumbiner does not challenge the Director's determination that the school is in compliance with its CUP. So that issue is actually not before you. Rather, Ms. Gumbiner only challenges the determination by the Director as part of its compliance review approval that the school should no longer be subject to this annual review process. In connection with filing this application, the Planning Department and the Council Office assessed the value of continuing with this process and concurred that the requirement should be lifted going forward. They both observed that the school's ongoing compliance with its CUP since 2012 is strong evidence that there is no longer a need for these reviews, that the Planning Department's resources would be better allocated to other initiatives, that these annual compliance reviews are not regularly imposed on other schools, and that the school's continued engagement with its neighbors, including Ms. Gumbiner, through the quarterly neighborhood meetings required under the CUP would continue to address issues of community concern as they arise. And with respect to this last point, the school supports the proposed amendment to the neighborhood committee condition that Ms. Howard submitted in her letter on behalf of the council office. It's important to note that even without these annual compliance reviews, the Director of Planning always retains the discretion to modify the school's CUP to impose any corrective actions deemed warranted if there is ever evidence presented that the school is not abiding by its CUP. So the community will remain protected. It will have procedural recourse even without this annual review process. A couple other points. Ms. Gumbiner noted, I believe she noted that minutes of the quarterly meetings were not included in our annual compliance review as required. That's actually not accurate. They were included. Importantly, this is a compliance review from 2017. So due to the planning department's caseload, it's only now coming before you. So the minutes that I believe she would be referring to might come in a subsequent one if this were to continue. But the school addresses all of those issues in each of the quarterly meetings. I believe there was also a comment about how active the school is and the number of days it's active. But all of that activity is in full compliance with the CUP. In 2008, the city deemed fit to grant the school certain extracurricular activities and rights to special events commensurate with what other schools throughout the city have. And the school has been adhering to all of those conditions. And so there's nothing to suggest that the school's operations are no longer compatible with the community. In short, the appeal does not demonstrate that the director erred or abused its discretion in finding the school in compliance with the CUP. The appellant doesn't even challenge that determination. And so we respectfully request that you deny the appeal and grant the requested modification to the condition of approval requiring these annual reviews going forward. The school appreciates very much so being a part of this Sherman Oaks community. The school looks forward to continuing to be a good neighbor and working with Ms. Gumbiner and all of its neighbors towards addressing issues of concern as they arise. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. So we have some public comment speakers. Would you all like to speak to the issues in testimony first or hear public comment first? It's your call. No? Planning staff.
Cornelia Mullis, Planning Staff. I do want to note that we have the minutes in the case file. It was part of our submission.
Okay, got it. Thank you so much. All right, so we have Marshall Long, Davir, Leslie Getzman, Ron Ziff.
Hi, my name is Marshall Long. I am Chair of the Land Use Committee for Sherman Oaks Homeowners Association, and I am here to speak in favor of our appeal. The CUP conditions are one of the few ways of motivating developers and others to report, to respect the neighborhoods in which their activities occur. The school agreed to these conditions of a yearly report on the effects on the neighborhood. It is unsettling for the school to, having agreed to these conditions, would now say, in essence, just kidding. We don't really want to comply with the CUP conditions we signed.
Thank you.
Gee, just when I got the punchline.
It was perfectly prepared comments. Leslie Getzman, Ron Ziff, Carla Dorsey.
Yes. Hello, good afternoon. My name is Leslie Getzman. I'm on the Board of Trustees of the Buckley School, and I am here in opposition to the appeal and in support of Buckley. My family and I have been neighbors of the Buckley School for over 33 years, and I've been involved as a parent since 1992.
As a neighbor, our family has loved living near the school, and our children were able to walk to school and be part of a neighborhood that supported the school. As a parent, I've also been active within the school, and since that 1992, and the school has always made parents and students regularly aware of being a respectful and good neighbor. We have lived in 2 homes, both that have been within a block of the school, one at the cross street of the main entrance, and we currently live at the cross street that is on the border, the west border of the school. We have very little impact. Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Sir, I'm representing Neighborhood Council. I don't need 5 minutes, but I may run over one.
Let's roll. Go with it.
My name's Ron Ziff. I'm president of the Sherman Oaks Neighborhood Council. There are about 1,200 private and parochial schools in the city. These schools all operate under conditional use permits, but when a annual report is required, it's a huge expense. The department doesn't have time to deal with these on a timely basis. It's a burden on the department. In this case, the Buckley School wants to move one of its quarterly meetings to the Neighborhood Council, which would be public under the Brown Act. That will only increase transparency and allow more interaction with the community. We think that's a good thing. Thank you.
Hello, my name is Carla Dorsey. I'm a mother of a senior at the Buckley School. We live in Paramount. My son travels to Sherman Oaks by bus in the valley. He has grown as a leadership as a result of an inclusive education he is receiving at the Buckley School. He is the captain of the basketball team. He's an honest student with a GPA of 4.87. He will be matriculating to Harvard University in the fall. As a parent, I know firsthand that the school communicates constantly with the parents to be respectful to its neighbors and requests that we abide by the conditional use permit, and we hope that you will deny the appeal. Thank you.
Thank you so much, and congratulations to you and your son. And thank you for being there for him and making the trip for him.
Thank you.
We appreciate you. All right, I have Davir. All right, come on, Herman, since you're being so polite and friendly. You should visit.
It's always apparent when a nigger tries to suppress public comment simply because the color of my skin is white and my birth certificate says I'm a white nigger too. But it's apparent that the director of planning to approve this Buckley School, fuck you, 42 U.S.C. 1983, is not in compliance with the ADA 2010 standard. Fuck all of you. I want elevators, I want shuttles, and I want to see children's life experience improved at the Buckley School, assholes.
And Sheila Q said, listen, asshole, listen, asshole, listen, asshole.
You're
so
off
now
topic.
that I got your attention on CD4, fuck the rapist Rue, fuck the man with the badge, fuck the DA, fuck the city attorney, and fuck all of you who fuck with public comment and censorship, asshole.
So we're here to tell you that the Sherman Oaks Neighborhood Council's correct. You motherfucking planner motherfuckers tried to deny us our hearing in our local motherfucking jurisdiction. You just paid off David Rapist Rowe to fuck all the kids and fuck all the homeowners and fuck all the police in the neighborhood. I had to drive all the way down here in my goddamn stolen Bentley to get my ass here in time to talk to you motherfucking city niggas to tell you to back the fuck up with the procedure and resurrect the Brown Act that Mr. Zip is talking about. Mr. Zip is my nigga. Sherman Oaks is my hood. Beverly Hills is not my hood, but motherfucking Ventura Boulevard. I own
Ventura Boulevard, Mr. Price, and this shit ain't going down in my community. My motherfucking community says, put this shit back. Do not goddamn sustain the appeal, motherfucker.
That's your time. Thank you. We invite you to visit District 8 with the same energy that you have today. Would you like to address any of the legitimate questions and comments that came up during public comment? We apologize to those of you who've driven here from Sherman Oaks or Paramount or anywhere else. This is the implication of broad and deep and sustained freedom of speech, especially political speech, here in the United States. All right? No responses?
Not at this time.
All right, I'll move that we deny the appeal and thereby sustain the Director of Planning's determination to approve the categorical exemption removal of condition number A43, requiring an annual compliance review and proposed modification to condition number A53 as presented by CD4 for the Buckley School located at 3900 through 3910 North Stansbury Avenue. If there's no objection, that'll be the order. All right. So we conclude that, and can you confirm, Mr. Mejia, that that concludes our business for today?
That concludes the agenda, Council.
Excellent. We are adjourned. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen.